Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Calder Justice, and I'm here with Ernest Lessinger, who I will introduce in a minute. And today we are going to go over the Salesforce Lightning experience and the new features and other items that it will entail, and walk you through how you should set it up and what you need to look at to make sure it is the right fit for your organization. Before we go and jump into that, let me show you a little bit about EnablePath and who we are. We're a Salesforce Platinum partner. We've had over 2,000 successful engagements. We've got over 360 Salesforce certifications within our company right now. We have a growing customer base of 875 customers. And one thing we're really proud of is our customer satisfaction rating of 9.3 out of 10. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Ernest and let him walk us through the Lightning experience. Go ahead, Ernest.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for the introduction, Calder. And everybody should now see the slide on the EnablePath Lens Health and Audit Service, which is a tool that the EnablePath Solutions team has built to provide static analysis of your Salesforce org, specifically analysis of the data in your Salesforce org, analysis of the data model, and of your Visualforce and Apex development, which is going to be extremely critical in the next 2 or 3 Salesforce releases, that you understand what you have configured and what you've developed in your Salesforce org. As Lightning Experience rolls out fully, what you'll find is that there are some significant changes to how Salesforce will be handling Visualforce pages, as well as some changes to things like the Salesforce home screen, the sidebar components, and some changes to how URL buttons and JavaScript buttons on standard page layouts function. So we have this tool, EnablePath Lens, that will help you understand all of that. It produces HTML, Excel, and PDF documentation of your Salesforce org, and that's available by contacting Pam Bryan at the number that I'll show at the end of the deck. So without further ado, we'll talk about today's agenda. Our goal today is to tell you about the Salesforce Lightning experience. This is the second in our Winter 16 in our series of Winter 16 release webinars. The first webinar was last Friday, and unfortunately we had some technical issues, so we were not able to post a recording of that webinar, but we are going to re-record it early next week. I have confirmed that we're recording the webinar today, so hopefully we'll have that up later today or early next week, and then last week's webinar will be posted a little bit later following that. Just a reminder as we go through here, Salesforce.com, or Salesforce, is a publicly traded company, and we are not Salesforce. We are using a number of images. In fact, most of the images in our deck were produced by Salesforce. We're using them to help explain the product. And then also just a reminder, we are talking about a number of features that are in beta or are in pilot, which means that they could change and very likely will change prior to their final release. I'm not going to talk much, if at all, today about my expectations for what those releases will look like, but certainly we can expect that the Lightning experience will continue to grow and evolve. So I will be monitoring that, as all of you should, over the next few months to a year, just to make sure that you stay up to date with what Lightning Experience is going to look like when it's all fully rolled out and available throughout the Salesforce platform. So the goal today is to explain how the Lightning Experience will affect your organization and what these new features entail and how to utilize them. That is still developing. Salesforce is still adding features. They're still adding functionality and capability, and not all of the features of Salesforce are available in the Lightning experience. So I have a URL here at the bottom of this slide. This is to the Salesforce Winter 16 release notes, specifically the feature impact pages, which are an extensive matrix of Salesforce features that are available in Lightning Experience, that are available in Lightning Experience and Salesforce Classic, or that are available only in Salesforce Classic. And it's important to remember that as you move through the Salesforce user interface, if you have Lightning Experience activated, you can still do everything in Salesforce that you could do previously, but you might find that you leave the Lightning Experience user interface framework and look and feel when you enter areas that Salesforce does not support through the Lightning Experience. I'm sure those gaps will be remedied in very quickly in the next few releases. But for now, it is important that before you activate Lightning Experience for your customers, or excuse me, for your users, you should make sure that they are aware and you are aware of what functionality they'll be using. Okay, so talking a little bit about terminology in Salesforce, the first thing I want to make sure you are aware of is Salesforce Trailhead, which is a new approach to training and certification that Salesforce is providing. Trailhead was, to me at least, the most visible brand and the most visible element of the Salesforce developer zone at Dreamforce this year. They had essentially a little national forest replica set up in the Moscone Center there. And you got to go through and you followed a trail through the Trailhead developer zone, or through the Trailhead zone. And they had you work on 2 or 3 Trailhead modules right there on a laptop within the Moscone Center that they provided, which is possible because Trailhead runs through your browser. It provides all of the documentation and training, as well as all of the steps you need in order to do everything from Salesforce configuration to Salesforce development using the Salesforce debug console. Right within Trailhead. So they teach you how to do that. They teach you how to use the debug console. And then the really cool thing is that once the Trailhead module has taught you what to do, it evaluates and confirms that you did that. So whether you created a custom object or a custom field or created a Lightning component or an Aura component, the Trailhead technology validates that you did that work, so it makes sure that you're moving through the learning process smoothly. It also has a gamification component. It gives you points as you complete challenges. You get more points if you complete the challenges the first time. And then it gives you badges when you complete modules, and as well as badges for getting certain point scores and things like that. So it's a really great learning experience. And I know from some of the announcements that they made at Dreamforce that they're going to be integrating Trailhead tightly into the new certification programs as well. I won't go into the new certifications program today. I did talk about those last week, and those will be available in the recording of the webinar, of last week's webinar that we'll be posting shortly. So now for what is usually the most boring element of any college lecture, the glossary here. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of the new Salesforce branding. Seems like Salesforce adds a new brand or changes a brand or retires a brand, or yeah, haven't heard the term cloud in a while, with every release. And we did get a reminder that Salesforce One Lightning Experience is not the proper terminology. It's now called Salesforce Lightning. Salesforce One is the mobile application, so only the mobile app retains the one after Salesforce. Now, it is important to note that the Lightning experience is all about making Salesforce mobile first and tablet first while retaining that desktop experience, which means that over time we should see the mobile experience and the desktop experience start to converge, where you'll be able to use Lightning components on the desktop. They'll render properly on a mobile device, and you'll be able to create page layouts that work correctly, if not optimally, on mobile devices as well as on a tablet and a desktop. They do provide the ability, or will provide the ability, to create page layouts that are separate for mobile and desktop so that you can provide optimal user experience as well. And I definitely recommend that you check out the Trailhead modules on designing for mobile devices. So just a few of the other new Salesforce technologies. Heroku Enterprise, basically adding enterprise features and security to Salesforce's existing Heroku product that they purchased a few years ago. Thunder, which is Salesforce's new Internet of Things service for connecting anything to Salesforce. It's basically a big data tool combined with a business intelligence tool and workflow rules that we've all grown to know and love. from Salesforce, made available for high data volumes and for the Internet of Things. Trailhead I've already mentioned. It's the fast, fun way to learn app development on Salesforce. Force.com remains. It's now called, or correct me, it's the application platform. Yes, so it's now called the application platform, which is essentially moving Salesforce further and further towards this concept of being a platform and less of a focus on sales and service, where those are now becoming more products of Salesforce than the core functionality of the Force.com platform. Salesforce Shield is their term for all of their security and compliance capabilities, which includes a lot of their identity products, their encryption products, their audit compliance, and their event monitoring products that they have available. Okay, Aura is the open source, was created by Salesforce framework for Lightning experience. SAQL, Salesforce Analytics Query Language, and I'm combining data pipelines into this subject, is the high-performance, parallelizable, pipeline-based query language for Wave Analytics, which is based on Pig, which is a Hadoop-related technology. Data pipelines allows you to make Pig scripts that operate on Salesforce S objects as well as on Wave data. So you can now operate both on the operational data in your Salesforce database as well as on highly large data volume data sets that are stored in Wave. The Analytics Cloud, or Wave, are now called Wave Analytics. And then down at the bottom, you'll notice Salesforce One Reports, or Salesforce Reports, which used to be called the Analytics Cloud, have been renamed Salesforce Reports and Dashboards. Some other Lightning capabilities, Lightning Connect, which is not part of the Lightning user experience, but it is an integration technology that provides seamless integration of data across system boundaries, which is basically just a way of saying that you can now access on-premise data from your Salesforce instance without having to load or integrate or use an ETL tool to get all of that data into Salesforce. And I'll be talking about that a little bit later. Lightning Experience is the new Salesforce user interface, including the new capabilities for Sales and Service Cloud. Lightning UI is just how I refer to the new Salesforce user interface look and feel. Lightning Design is the open source set of guidelines, tools, frameworks, and etc. for creating user interfaces that look and feel like Salesforce. So those of you who are familiar with standard Visualforce components that would bring in the standard Salesforce look and feel, Lightning Design is a new technology or a new framework that allows you to get those same benefits of a standard Salesforce user experience with all of the flexibility that you get from having direct control over the HTML5 DOM, the document object model, as well as direct control over the cascading style sheets that are used to render your application. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is talk about the Lightning experience. In the Winter 16 release, Lightning Experience is a dramatic improvement in the sales process. It does not yet touch the Service Cloud or most of the rest of the Salesforce application. There are some implications for development that we'll talk about a little bit later, and it does not currently support all objects and functions. Lightning Experience does add some capabilities throughout the platform. So a new activity feed to help salespeople understand more about what's going on with their accounts and contacts and opportunities and leads. Contextual hovers that are improved over the standard hover page layout that we had in Salesforce Classic. A new opportunity board that provides an entire picture of a salesperson or a sales team's or a company's opportunity pipeline. Organized by stage so that you can very easily see which opportunities and how many and what value of opportunities are in each stage. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Customizable reports and dashboards with multiple columns and dashboards, finally. And then, of course, improvements to chatter activities, chatter files, Lightning apps and components, and a new technology for record home pages to replace those the list views that we used to get when we looked at a S-object tab. Just to note there, those are in pilot and are not expected to maintain whatever work you do from this release to the next release. So record home pages, while they are there, are not really ready for use quite yet. So just to repeat myself a little bit, the Lightning experience is currently geared toward the Sales Cloud with over 55 reimagined Sales Cloud pages. That's the number that Salesforce provides. I'm only going to talk about a few of those. And then a little bit later, I'll talk about what this means for developers. So getting started with Lightning experience. When and how to enable. The URL that I gave you at the beginning of this presentation with the feature matrix will help you walk through when to enable Lightning experience. There are also several Trailhead modules that will help you determine when it's appropriate to activate Lightning experience in your org. My recommendation is if you have salespeople who use Sales Cloud functions, which means leads, opportunities, accounts, and contacts, maybe products and price books. I don't believe Lightning Experience supports quotes. I don't have that reference documentation in front of me. Calder's shaking his head. So make sure that the functionality you are using is supported by Lightning Experience. If it is for your sales organization, then you should seriously consider using Lightning Experience today. It adds a lot of value, particularly around reports and dashboards, a lot of value around task management, note management, file management, chatter feeds, and the like, that you simply don't get from Salesforce Classic. Now, if you are using Salesforce for service and support, you should consider using Lightning Experience, but you should definitely go through that matrix and make sure that the specific functionality you're using is supported by Lightning Experience, and that the experience of moving between Lightning and Salesforce Classic is accounted for in your training and your documentation. If you are using pure custom objects, especially if you're using a lot of Visualforce pages, or if you've heavily customized the buttons on your standard page layouts, then I would suggest not migrating to Lightning Experience yet, simply because it's a new experience. There are still changes happening, and we'll talk a little bit later about some of the capabilities of Salesforce Classic that are not available in Lightning Experience. That said, Salesforce has rolled out this new technology before it is fully implemented in Salesforce to give you a chance to use the new technology, not only for sales to drum up enthusiasm, but also to give you a chance to try this out before it becomes, before the timer starts on a migration to Salesforce Lightning Experience for everyone. So regardless of whether you're planning to use Lightning Experience for your users immediately, I do recommend that you activate it in a sandbox, maybe even activate it in production for a few users. There's no harm in doing that, so that you can start to get some experience with the Lightning Experience framework and start to learn and understand how you will configure this so that you can take advantage of all these great new features when they're available for you. Okay, so how to use Lightning Experience. First thing to do is go to the setup screen. There will be a Lightning Experience with the red new and exclamation point visible at the very top of the setup menu. It isn't necessarily obvious if you're looking for Lightning Experience in one of the other Salesforce settings pages. It actually took me a few minutes the first time I enabled Lightning Experience to find that, because I kind of expected it to be in configuration or user experience or general settings. No, it's just right there visible at the top of the page, last place you look for it, of course. So first thing you do, click on that, and then you have the options to activate a number of Lightning Experience features. Again, make sure you read the release notes before you activate these. Some of them can't be disabled, and some of these aren't fully compatible with Salesforce Classic. But what you're looking at is shared activities, accounts insights, and then social accounts, contacts, and leads. Those are new capabilities that are not necessarily related to the Lightning user interface. They're more capabilities of the Lightning experience. So you can activate one or more of those. And then you'll set up permissions using either profiles or permission sets to grant your users the ability to turn on the Lightning experience. If you're an administrator, don't forget to give yourself the ability, or you might want to give access to some of your subject matter experts or Salesforce advocates within your business units so that they can see how Lightning Experience works. Again, when you do that, make sure that they know how to turn Lightning Experience on and off. And you do that by clicking on your name in Salesforce Classic, and I believe you do that by clicking on your picture in the Lightning Experience user interface. Okay, so talking first about some of the sales experience changes in Lightning Experience. The first thing, and to me the most interesting, is the new sales path. This is available on both leads and opportunities. And for those of you who are experienced with sales processes on opportunities previously, this should be very familiar. Basically, you have the ability to define the stages that an opportunity will go through. But now for each of those stages, you can also define fields that are required for those stages that will pop up when you attempt to move an opportunity from one stage to the other. And you have the ability to define sales guidance, which is like a tip that will be visible when the salesperson is working on an opportunity in that stage. And what those turn into is a ribbon when you're looking at your opportunities page. So this ribbon shows you the sales pipeline starting from qualification all the way to closed won, and it shows cards for each of those opportunities with some basic information. It's configurable what information you want to show, but of course the most obvious is the name of the opportunity, which usually includes the account, and the value of the opportunity. The stage of the opportunity is implied by the column that it's in, and then you can drag and drop those opportunity cards from one column to the other in order to change their stage. And I mentioned this on the last call, but this is a really incredible tool that Salesforce has added here for companies that use sales teams. So now a salesperson can go in and very easily move opportunities from one stage to another in order to reflect the true stage of an opportunity, which should be great news for sales managers who've been having trouble getting their salespeople to keep opportunities stages up to date. Well, now there's no excuse, right? You can just drag and drop. It's about as easy as it's possible to get to move these opportunities into the correct stage. And then, of course, you can pop this board up onto a GoToMeeting or a WebEx session with your team and let everybody see what's happening with these opportunities and kind of give at a glance view of what your sales pipeline looks like with, again, the ability to move opportunities from one stage to the other to make sure that your pipeline is accurate. Some changes to the sales homepage. So some changes to the search screen that I'll let you look up in the, or the search capabilities that I'll let you look up in the release notes. But there's now a quarterly performance chart, so your salespeople can see on an interactive chart what their sales pipeline looks like and how it looks relative to closed business, relative to their goal, relative to their, in this case, greater than 70% probability of closing opportunities, so that they have a much better at-a-glance view of what their pipeline looks like and what their forecast looks like. Account insights that will show you interesting news brought via the data.com relationship about your accounts and opportunities that are currently active. And then an assistant that gives you proactive alerts about tasks, chatter feeds, lead assignments. All of those various related lists have now been combined into a single list view called the Assistant that lets salespeople see what's going on in their world. Again, a quick overview of the sales path with the ability to define how that path looks from stage to stage. There's a link to the release notes there, and just a view of how the opportunity page has changed. Okay, account details, of course, and contact details have also changed. You'll see that the related list is now visible as a tab rather than having to scroll all the way down the page. Activities and collaboration are now available as a column on the right side of the page, basically shortening the page itself. So you still have, if you look there at the number 1, you still have the ability to define some critical fields that are visible at the top of these objects. I mentioned related lists are now a tab. You have your account insights there, which basically act as a Visualforce page, although they are actually a Lightning component. The ability to see social insights, the ability to look at your related opportunities, and then over on the right, your activities with your chatter actions there to create a new task, log a call, new event, and email, and so forth. Account Insights I've already mentioned, providing easy access to news articles. Contact details, again, very similar. So you can kind of get a sense for how the Lightning experience is going to change. And there aren't a lot of good examples yet, but it's important to note that this page layout is going to have the ability to add additional Salesforce components or additional Lightning components so that you can add things like posting Twitter feeds. You can add new capabilities like mapping. You can add sales process for whatever your favorite sales sales guidance process is to this page once you've built the Lightning components for those. So that capability is still coming. Leads follow the same basic pattern as opportunity. Here you can see an example of the key fields that have been defined for this stage in the lead process, as well as the guidance that the sales manager has defined for this stage in the lead process. Products and price books have been extended with access to the Lightning Experience user interface, which means that you can now, again, add Lightning components to those. You can add triggers to them and so forth. So continuing to make products and price books full citizens in the Salesforce ecosystem. And then social media integration. I talked about that earlier. So integration with Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so forth. But they are now available through Salesforce, so this continues to expand that capability that's been added over the last few years. And then some general enhancements from Lightning. So the ability to view list views in Salesforce with charts. So adding charts to list views so that you can now see accounts by industry when you're looking at your list of accounts. Works very similar to adding charts to reports in Salesforce. But as with much of the Lightning experience, users now have more ability to modify these list views and charts from directly within the user interface. So you no longer have to jump over to a new, completely different user interface, completely different page in order to change them. List views are getting faster. They load faster. You can modify the list view, add filters, remove filters from directly on the list view page, so you no longer have to click edit, create a new list view, modify the list view, click save, check to make sure it has the columns you want. That can now be modified from directly on the list view page. And list views are no longer limited to the number of records that you have selected. You can now just scroll continuously through this list view, and it will stream records to the browser as you scroll. Task lists have been expanded, and I don't know if we have an example of notes, but they've also been expanded in a similar way. So you can now view all of your tasks. You can click on a task to see the information. You can hover over it to see the related object and so forth. So a much improved task view. Again, trying to move toward a merge or convergence of mobile devices and desktop devices. So you can start to get a sense how the navigation bar here on the left is very similar to the navigation bar that you might see in a mobile device. This list view would translate very well to a mobile device. This column could be made a page or a card where you click on this item and this column becomes visible on a mobile device. So, as I said, starting to see how that convergence is happening. Unrelated to the Salesforce user interface directly is the Salesforce app for Outlook, which is now generally available. It allows you to integrate Salesforce directly into Office 2013 and above, and Office web app access. So if you're using Office 365, you can go to store.office.com, download the free Salesforce for Office application. It will step you through the instructions for how to link your Salesforce instance to your Salesforce app for Office instance. And immediately you'll start seeing the Salesforce data not only through the Outlook web app, but also through Outlook desktop, which is really cool. I've been using that for the last few days. And I'll remind all of the EnablePath employees on the call we will get some instructions out to you as soon as we've tested everything and made sure it's fully functional within our Outlook environment and our Salesforce environment. So implications for Lightning development. I talked about this last week on the webinar. What we're finding is that the complexity of use cases that is supported by Salesforce has expanded. What I mean by that is it's now possible to do things with clicks that previously required code. So roll-up calculations, updating a field on a parent object, creating a new record when another record is created or updated, modifying a different record when a primary record is created or updated. Those are now possible using Salesforce visual flow or headless flows. Process Builder now supports essentially workflow processes that have multiple stages that are long-running processes where you might be waiting for a customer to reply back. You can now trigger multiple time-based workflow actions from the Process Builder so that you can say when an opportunity moves into the closed stage, you might schedule an immediate installation task plus a follow-up task in 2 days plus a customer satisfaction task in 2 weeks. Those can all be scheduled as part of the same Process Builder, where previously that kind of time-based workflow might have required a trigger, might even have required an App Exchange app. So all of those capabilities are now part of the Lightning experience, while at the same time, Salesforce has greatly expanded the development capabilities. It's always been possible to do pretty much whatever you wanted using a Visualforce page in JavaScript, but with Lightning components, what Salesforce has done is given you a reliable, stable, compatible framework that will allow you to write JavaScript-based components using the Lightning design framework so that they have the same look and feel as Salesforce, that have all of the capabilities that used to require using a custom JavaScript framework. And if you follow the Salesforce Lightning Components guidelines and if you use the Aura framework, what you'll find is that these Lightning components work within the Salesforce One mobile app, they work within the Salesforce desktop app, and they can communicate with each other and with other components that are part of different managed packages, for example, in ways that was difficult or impossible with Visualforce. So what we find is that complex configuration has become easier. Simple development has become configuration. Complex development has become easier, and extremely complex development has become possible on the Force.com platform. And for tasks that are not possible with Lightning components in JavaScript, Salesforce has added Heroku. They have Salesforce Wave Analytics. They have Pardot. They have ExactTarget, or the Marketing Cloud. So Salesforce continues to add enterprise-grade capabilities and technologies and continues to make them simpler and easier to access for small to medium businesses and for SIs working for those small to medium businesses. Now, with that said, getting up on my personal soapbox, we're reaching a point where in some situations clicks are becoming as complex as code. And that means that when you are going to be using Lightning components in particular, but also even when you're using complex visual headless flows, or when you're using Process Builder with multiple steps and stages, it's absolutely critical that you develop a mindset of testing. Make sure you test your work. Use your sandboxes to do your development. Deploy those changes using change sets from your sandbox to production. Make sure you do proper user acceptance testing with real data in the system so that you don't run into issues down the road. So, talking specifics about development and Lightning experience, what's happening to Visualforce? Salesforce has committed to support Visualforce indefinitely. It remains a first-class customer. Now, Salesforce has not said this, but I'm saying, how many of you remember S-controls? That was the technology that was actually surprisingly similar to Lightning components in that it was JavaScript-based that Salesforce had prior to Visualforce. S-controls are no longer supported. So we can expect that over the next 2 to 3 years, Salesforce is going to want us to migrate completely to Lightning components. I have not heard a formal timeline from Salesforce, so please don't say that I have. But as a technical architect and as CTO of a Salesforce SI, I'm planning for all of our Salesforce development to use Lightning components over the next couple of years. Certainly not in this release, not in the next couple of months, but maybe in the next year or 2 years, I'm going to expect my technical architects and solution architects to be planning to build Lightning components, not Visualforce pages. Lightning components are mobile friendly. They shift some or a lot of the rendering and processing effort to the browser. What that means is that it's better experience for mobile because a lot of the data processing will be done locally on the mobile device without requiring online access. Better experience for the desktop because Lightning components can talk to each other and are more encapsulated, so you can have more powerful components that do more things without having to worry about conflicts between components. And then as a nice side effect, a lower server overhead for Salesforce. So as I said, Lightning components are sandbox JavaScript, so that they have access to the Salesforce Chrome and can talk to each other. What that means is, I'll tell you that in a little bit. What that means is that Lightning components function in many ways very similar to a managed package, where each Lightning component is itself similar to a managed package. It has its own static resources, its own model, its own view state, its own controller, which is very similar to the static resource Apex class Visualforce page experience that you experienced with Visualforce, except that components are more contained so that when you build a component, you can have all of this rich functionality that does not clutter up your development environment and does not clutter up your Salesforce setup experience. And you can now create everything as a component, which makes it a lot easier to add individual elements of your application to a page layout without having to worry about using configuration to maybe turn on or off specific Visualforce or specific elements of your Visualforce page. So what does Visualforce look like in Lightning Experience? API access, including JavaScript remoting, still works just fine. The Visualforce page, for the most part, should still operate exactly as it did before. Layout and graphic design looks the same. Standard components have not been updated to support Lightning design, so they should all have the same experience. PDF files should look the same when they're rendered from Visualforce. But what changes? Visualforce now runs in an iframe, which means it can no longer access the Salesforce DOM, the document object model. And JavaScript no longer has access to the window global object. That means that if you have Visualforce pages that do redirects using window.location, or if you have Visualforce pages that modified the standard Salesforce tabs or looked at the URL to understand which record they were operating on, things like that, you might find that you have to rewrite those Visualforce pages. And I'll talk in a little bit about how you can change your code to support this new experience. So what's breaking? Remember the old URL trick where you could just use /record_ID to go to a page view, to an S-object view page? That still works, but it causes the Lightning Experience user interface to re-render. This is always what happened, but that's so 2014. Lightning Experience now re-renders only the detail components of the pages without re-rendering the whole pages, or the whole page, which is what consoles have done for the last few releases. And the trick where you could pass a default value into a new record page or into a record edit page by using the S-object prefix /e field identifier, which for an opportunity name would be OPP3 equals, and then the URL encoded data value. That was never officially supported by Salesforce. It still works, but you leave the Lightning experience. So for our customers who have used either of those tricks, just a reminder that you'll either want to modify how your links operate, or you'll want to start using Lightning components or rewrite those as a Visualforce page. So how do you do these same capabilities with Lightning Experience? The same trick still works. It's just not an ideal experience. So how you do it properly is you use this URL. It will take you to the documentation for the sforce.1 JavaScript namespace, which allows you to call a JavaScript function to create a record or to modify a record or to view a record. That will cause the Salesforce Lightning Experience user interface to access that record and render it within the existing frame header and sidebar frame. It's a better experience. It doesn't re-render the whole page, so it's better and faster. Unfortunately, I do not yet have a solution for how you use this trick, the default values. So I'm still working on that, and hopefully somebody can either post it in a question or maybe email me and tell me how to achieve that same result. Again, it's never been supported by Salesforce, but it was so gosh darn handy. I know a lot of customers have used it. Okay, so building Lightning components. The framework, not the language in which Lightning components are written, is called Aura. That is an open source framework that Salesforce has published, and I didn't put the URL to the framework, but if you go to this Lightning documentation, I believe the URL is there. You don't really need to understand the Aura framework in order to write Lightning components. It's just an interesting piece of background information. Lightning components themselves are written with JavaScript, HTML5, and all the usual Web 2.0, Web 2.x technologies that you're familiar with. Aura components are encapsulated JavaScript and other resources, similar to managed packages. They force you to follow strict naming conventions, both for cascading style sheets and for JavaScript methods and objects, which means that the Lightning or the Aura framework can rewrite your code dynamically to make sure that components do not conflict with each other. So if you create a base object or a base cascading style sheet class, Salesforce will rename that to match your unique component prefix on the fly so that those components don't interfere with each other. They can talk to each other through events because they are all JavaScript driven, and they can talk to the Salesforce Lightning Experience and do things like tell the Lightning Experience to render a detail page or render a related view page and so forth. Lightning apps are bundles of components, maybe with a page layout that defines the top-level components and how the app appears on the sidebar, and any chatter actions, etc., should be part of the app. Why I'm making this distinction? Because Lightning apps as bundles of components are essentially a top-level user interface element, but what you will be working with is components, where previously you might download a managed package and say, I'm downloading an application, and maybe you had some kind of concept of this application adds a Visualforce page that you can add to the account and contact and lead an opportunity, and you might have thought of those as components. They really weren't. They were Visualforce pages with the component concept kind of layered on top. Within Lightning, those components would actually be full-featured components within the Salesforce Lightning Experience, which means that you can have a completely usable, completely fully functional Lightning app that is nothing but components that are added to the standard Salesforce page layout or to your home page view or added within a dashboard. I'm not sure if that's a possibility yet, but I'm sure it's on the roadmap. So components really are the little applications or applets, to use a term from outside the Salesforce ecosystem, that you'll be operating in. And within the Lightning framework, you need to get your head around the fact that components are what you're working with, not applications, for the most part. Lightning Design is again an open source design framework that Salesforce published. The URL there is available at the top of the slide. It's a set of user experience guidelines, cascading style sheet files, layout components, content guidelines, icons, user interface components, and more. So I'm talking about everything from cascading style sheet classes to instructions on how to structure the content of your page to guidelines on how to write and what kinds of language to use on your page to make your Lightning components and your Lightning Experience applications function and look and feel like they're part of the Salesforce experience. In this sense, it's very similar to Bootstrap or Foundation in that you can either use the LESS or SAS cascading style sheet compilers to generate custom cascading style sheet files that can then become part of your Lightning component. I highly recommend that as a business who is building out a custom user experience within Salesforce, I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you look at Lightning design, that you look at using Lightning components, and as much as possible, build your experience using components that fit within the Salesforce experience and that follow the Salesforce design. I would say of the customers that I've worked with over the past 8 to 10 years in the Salesforce ecosystem, probably about 50% of them have chosen to break with the standard Salesforce look and feel. Of those, subjectively speaking, I would say about half of those probably didn't need to. They either did it because they had a strong internal branding sense, or they did it because they felt that they knew something about Salesforce or something about user experience and UI design that Salesforce didn't implement within Salesforce Classic. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but I strongly recommend that you definitely consider at least using Lightning design elements and Lightning components. Okay, talking about Lightning Connect, which is not really part of the Lightning experience, but it has the Lightning name on it, and it's something new and cool that Salesforce released 2 or 3 releases ago, but has not really been fully adopted. So first of all, Lightning Connect is not Heroku Connect. Heroku Connect is a tool for accessing Salesforce data from Heroku. It synchronizes Salesforce with Postgres efficiently, does not eliminate your need for Salesforce API calls, but it does allow you to write Heroku code in Java or Python or Node.js or whatever language you're going to use to write Heroku code. That accesses the PostgreSQL database that does not have volume-based API pricing. It's a SQL database, so you have all of the capabilities of ACID compliance. You can write SQL transactions and so forth with Postgres, and then Heroku Connect will seamlessly integrate that with Salesforce using as few API calls as possible. Lightning Connect is the reverse. It allows you to access local data in a tabular format from Salesforce, meaning that you can have order records, order detail records, shipping records, student grade information, etc., that is stored on a local server and only served up to Salesforce when it's requested. When Salesforce gets those records, it creates a Salesforce ID and associates it with your external ID that you defined on the external database, which means that you can create lookups, you can add attachments, chatter posts, etc., unless you use high-volume external objects, which allows you to store millions or, if you wanted to, billions of records in your local database. Salesforce won't create a Salesforce ID for those, but it will allow you to serve up that data, again, order information, order line item information, student grade information, transactional data that you don't want to store in Salesforce, but that you do want to serve up a small subset within the Salesforce user interface. Among other limitations, Salesforce external data objects don't let you run reports and dashboards, and they don't support row-level security. The reason for that is in order to support reports and dashboards, Salesforce would either have to load all of the data into its servers, which defeats the purpose of using external objects, or it would have to issue very complex queries to your local server, which would work if you're using a local SQL server, but would not work if you're building a tabular interface to something like SAP or Oracle PeopleSoft or any of the other software packages out there that don't give you direct access to the database, but that do allow you to use API access. And this is probably the coolest thing about the OData protocol, which is what Lightning Connect is based on. It allows you to access in a tabular format data that comes from anywhere. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a question and answer process. Calder has given me some questions that people have asked, so I'll answer those in a moment. Where I'm going to leave you is with a slide about EnablePath's ongoing support options. This is similar to and complements Salesforce's Premier Success offerings. Essentially, this allows you to get not only configuration support, but potentially custom development support, as well as best practice consulting guidance from EnablePath on a as-you-need-it basis. So in order to find out more about our ongoing support options, contact Pam Bryan at the phone number there or email pbryan@enablepath.com. So now I'll move on and answer some of the questions. So the first question, what is the ideal use case scenario for adopting the current release of the Lightning experience? Again, my recommendation is early in this slide deck, I gave you a URL to the Salesforce Winter 16 release notes that give you a checklist of what features of Salesforce are supported in Lightning Experience and what features are not. So the use case is if you are using the Sales Cloud, accounts, contacts, leads, and opportunities, if you are not using a lot of Visualforce, if you're not using a lot of customized buttons, then I would definitely look strongly at using Lightning Experience. If you are using a lot of Visualforce, then you're going to need to look at using Lightning Experience, but test heavily. If you're using Service Cloud, if you're not using Sales Cloud at all, personally, I would start using Lightning Experience in a sandbox, and I would plan to start using it in production in the next release. Okay, I don't have a switch to Lightning Experience option under Development Console. Before you get access to the switch to Lightning Experience, you have to activate it. And you have to grant access to your profile to your user either through profiles or through custom setting, or excuse me, through I just lost the word. But you will have to grant yourself permission to use the Lightning Experience. It is not automatically activated for your users. So if we go back to those slides. The first thing to do is go to the setup page, and then on the setup page you should see Lightning Experience. Activate whichever features of the Lightning Experience you want to use, and then set up permissions to grant permission to use the Lightning Experience to your own profile. I don't recall whether system administrators automatically have that right, but it's always a good idea to grant system administrator access explicitly to any permission that you think they need. And then you'll have to enable the Lightning Experience. You won't see switch to Lightning Experience until that's enabled. How can we prepare to upgrade our Visualforce pages to be compatible with the Lightning Experience? The easiest, or the first thing I recommend you do is look for any use of window.location. Anytime you are accessing window.location, you can replace that with a function call that will perform the same action, but better. And then the second thing is look for any JavaScript in your Visualforce page that accesses the Salesforce Chrome. Anything that accesses the URL, anything that attempts to parse the document object model, anything like that. Otherwise, if you don't have those kinds of development skills, the best way to prepare to use Visualforce pages with Lightning Experience is to try it and see what breaks. For the most part, Visualforce pages should work just fine. There are 2 or 3 things that will not work properly under Lightning Experience, and those are pretty easy to fix. You probably will not need you might not even need a Salesforce developer. It might be something that a JavaScript developer could go in there and do. But that's something that Pam Bryan, pbryan@enablepath.com, can help you get set up. We can get one of our technical architects in there to look at your Visualforce pages, ideally in a Lightning Experience environment, so that we can kind of tell you how difficult or easy it will be to resolve that. How are Aura and Visualforce different? Good question. Trying to think how best to simply articulate this. Aura allows you to build Lightning components, which are essentially a Visualforce component. So one way to think of it is, analogy-wise, Aura eliminates the concept or the difference between a Visualforce page and a Visualforce component. You're now building Lightning components using Aura. Aura is designed to work on mobile environments, which means that it's designed to take full advantage of the JavaScript framework. Aura allows you to build full model view controller experiences within the browser. So those render as HTML. You have JavaScript-based controllers instead of server-based controllers, although you can still write Apex classes to have server-based controllers. In a nutshell, Aura takes a lot of the processing off of Visualforce and moves it into the browser. So instead of processing data and rendering the user interface in the server, the user interface will now be rendered in the browser, which allows components that are running in the browser to communicate with each other without having to talk back and forth to the server. That's the difference in a nutshell. How is Lightning Experience going to affect communities? There are new communities templates for Lightning Experience. Specifically, the Napili template is fully Lightning Experience enabled and will allow you to add Lightning components to your template. You can now modify your community's templates from within the community builder. For some communities, Lightning Experience will have no effect, and that's the communities that have fully overwritten the Salesforce brand, where everything is done with a Visualforce page. For those communities, I don't expect much change in the next 2 or 3 releases at least. For communities that use the Salesforce Chrome, so the standard Salesforce user interface, in the short term, don't activate Lightning Experience for those users, and there should be no effect. In the long term, I expect that Salesforce will bring the Lightning Experience into the community framework. So a question from one user: what's the best way to build a custom page now? If Visualforce is not future-proof, what framework, language, technology should I use? So this was qualified as a newbie question, so I'll give you the newbie answer, which is you should go to the Trailhead module for building Lightning components and Lightning apps, and you should step through that Trailhead module. It actually has you build a Lightning component in real time and add that Lightning component to Salesforce. That is, in my opinion, how you should proceed. If you already have Visualforce experience, if you are already using Visualforce pages and you need your new work to be compatible with your old work, there's no strong reason not to use Visualforce right now once you learn how to make it operate within the Lightning experience. If you are writing a completely new application, especially if you're using standard objects and you're not using the Service Cloud, you should strongly consider working with the Lightning experience from day one, building Lightning components from day one, so that your application will be completely future-proofed. So next question, if I have a Visualforce, an inline Visualforce in a Salesforce Classic page and I want to move to Lightning, but there's no Lightning component available, what are the options? So your options are, you can leave your inline Visualforce inline. Salesforce Lightning apps do support Visualforce pages, so Visualforce pages are actually implicitly created as Lightning components. So anywhere that you use a Lightning component, you can use a Visualforce page. It runs within an iframe. It's not completely ideal, but it should work fine. Otherwise, I would recommend that you build a Lightning component. I'm working with a customer right now who has a number of Visualforce pages that are intended to work inline. They wrote their code properly, in my opinion, in that a lot of the work is done internally by the Apex class. So the Apex class pre-processes the data. It serves up custom classes or private classes from within the Apex controller to the Visualforce page, and the Visualforce page uses standard Salesforce components. If that's how you wrote your Visualforce page, then you might find that it's surprisingly easy to convert that to a Lightning component. If your Visualforce page has a lot of JavaScript in it, especially if you've completely customized the user interface, then you might find that it's more difficult to convert that to a Lightning component, but at the same time, you might find that the standard Lightning components and Aura components that are available may provide the same or better functionality to what you built custom. So you might find that you can actually take your complex Visualforce page and convert it into a relatively simple Lightning component. Of course, everybody's experiences here will differ. I don't necessarily want to scare anybody away from Visualforce. In fact, I don't want to scare anybody away from Visualforce. It's a perfectly good technology, and it's the wave of the future for at least a few more Salesforce releases. If you're comfortable with Visualforce, write your new code in Visualforce, and just make sure you experiment and test it in the Lightning experience. And I believe that's the end of the questions. So we'll jump over to Calder.
Great, thanks, Ernest. That was very educational. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. We have recorded this. We will be posting it later this afternoon. You will all receive a link with that, as well as a link with a copy of this PowerPoint deck. We want to thank you all again for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us for this Lightning Experience webinar, and hope that everyone has a fantastic Friday afternoon and a great weekend. Thank you so much.